All right. The Lord is good. Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised. He is to be feared above all gods. Jesus is Lord of the glory of God. Where two or three are gathered in his name, the Spirit of God can manifest. Power of God, the reality of God, the existence of God, the Spirit of life from God, with the blood of the everlasting covenant. Glory, glory, glory. So here we are in the 11th version, or the 11th edition, of the 11th installment of the false doctrine in the book of Revelation, otherwise known as the false book of Revelation. That's what I found after in-depth study of it, comparing it with the rest of the Bible. It's very, very clear. It's very, very clear. Obvious. It's a no-brainer. Doesn't even take a brain to figure it out. You'd be brainless and figure it out. So, this is going to be a very interesting message because I'm going to read a lot of parables. It got me into harvesting, planting, and then harvesting or reaping. And I'm only going to look at about 6 or 7 verses in the 14th chapter of Revelation. But they open up such a subject, and it's so clear that these verses are just not in harmony with the gospel parables, and the teaching of Jesus, the words of Jesus. They're not at all. It's like fantasy land. So I want to get going because I want to read a lot of parables. I just feel that's the way to go, you know. So Revelation 14 through 20. And I looked and I saw a white cloud, and on the cloud one sat like the Son of Man. Well, was it the Son of Man, Jesus, or was it just the Son of Man? But it says, like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Is that right? Okay, so we have what they're leading the reader to believe is Jesus sitting on a cloud. He's just sitting there. He's not doing anything. Just sitting there with a pruning hook, with a harvesting tool. Not in heaven. Do they even have clouds in heaven? So we have to think it's earth. He's on a cloud on the earth, and he is just sitting there in the cloud. And it says, and another angel came out of the temple. What temple? So we're assuming that this is the temple in heaven. Angels are not clearly seen coming out of the temple on the earth. Well, when there was a temple. That's the excuse the Jews give for not having sacrifices, because there's no temple. But that's a very lame excuse, because you can just create one, build one. If you believe in the doctrine of Moses, Netanyahu said not too long ago that, Moses our leader. Not quite. Where's your tabernacle? Where's your priesthood, the Levitical priesthood that gives, that serves the people with the sacrifices? I don't think they do that. I don't think they practice that. No. Not that I know of. It might be a small cult group in Israel doing it. So another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, "Thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time is come for you to reap. For the harvest of the earth is ripe." And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Well, the chain of command is totally wrong here. God would tell Jesus, and Jesus would tell the angel, because it says in the Gospels, I'm going to read it, that the Son of Man, meaning Jesus, was going to tell the angels to reap. But what does that mean? The reaping in these verses that I'm reading in the book of Revelation is a butchering. It's a butchering of humans. And it doesn't really say which humans, just says, and in fact, it even indicates that it's butchering Christians. Believe it or not. It doesn't say Christians, of course, but I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Hard to believe, you know? So it's wrong, because this angel comes out of the temple, then he commands Jesus, who just seems to be lounging. He's just kind of on vacation on a cloud somewhere. Wouldn't he be in the temple? So according to this, but it doesn't even say God told the angel. It just says the angel came out. Well, did God tell him, or did the angel just decide to do it on his own? Verse 17. Another angel came out of the temple, which is in heaven, so it is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. All right, so another angel came out. And then, verse 18, another angel came out of the altar, came out from the altar. I've talked about this, before. And this strange business about there being a bunch of angels and a bunch of people too in the altar or under the altar is just crazy. First of all, what do they need an altar for? Are they doing sacrifices? Why do they have an altar? An altar is for doing sacrifices. And it says, from which had the power over fire. Oh, so this angel had power over fire. So the other angels don't? And God doesn't have any power over fire? A lot of these verses in this book, they don't even have God commanding many chapters. Like I said, there's many different things in this book, many different focuses, many different types of chapters. It's like all over the place. So all over the map. So he's crying, or he's screaming, or he's shouting, whatever, with a loud cry, loud voice, to him that had the sharp sickle. But it doesn't say which one. Now, Jesus had one. Of course, above, they say that he was already reaping. He was always busy reaping. Doing what? According to this, he was butchering people. But we'll assume it's the last angel. Thrust in your sharp sickle and gather, here it is, the clusters of the vine of the earth. Well, the vine, Jesus is the vine. In the 15th chapter of John, the Gospel of John, Jesus says, I am the vine. So why is he going after the fruit on the vine? That would be the Christians, right? And it says, thrust in your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. Well, that's Christians. That would be believers in Jesus, followers of Jesus, children of God through Jesus, right? That's what grapes is. Well, grapes is a symbol. I'm going to read the verses. Is a symbol for fruit. Well, grapes are fruit, and it's a symbol for the fruit of men. It's good thing. It's a good thing. It's good fruit, not bad fruit. It's not evil fruit. It's good fruit, grapes, as in the good fruit of men. And so here we're starting with Matthew 7, 16 and 17. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorn bushes? I edited this. I made this so easy to understand now. Do men gather grapes, I should have said, from thorn bushes? Or figs from thistle plants? No, the answer is of course not. So we see that grapes are good. Even so, every good tree brings forth good fruit. So the good fruit would be the grapes. He's indicating that grapes are good. But a corrupt tree brings forth evil fruit, which would not be grapes or figs. It would be thorns and prickers. And then Luke 6, 44 and 45. For every tree is known by his own fruit. I want to stop right there and say, see, there's actually two harvests. There's two types of harvesting. There's the harvest now. I'm not including the harvesting of the world. In other words, there's a harvest of souls. People that are believers in Jesus should be harvesting souls. He said the field was already ripe. It's always ready for harvest. So that's one type of harvest. Then there's the harvest at the end of the world. And since this part of Revelation is talking about that, I'm focusing more, but I am going to read a verse or two on the harvesting of the world. In other words, that's always ripe and ready to harvest. For every tree is known by his own fruit. From a thorn bush, men do not harvest figs, and a prickly bramble bush does not produce grapes. That's my translation. I think it's so perfect. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth that which is good. An evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth that which is evil. For of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. So fruit comes from what you say, what you believe. And we see in the verse 44 that there's different plants. And figs would be a symbol of good fruit, or saying the right words, and grapes would also be a symbol of the correct type of fruit that God likes. And then here's that verse in John 15, verse 5. I am the vine, you are the branches. He that trusts in me and I in him, the same brings forth much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. So Jesus is the vine, and the branches would be people, and the fruit would be grapes or figs. And what they say, what they believe. And then back to the chapter in Revelation. And the angel, verse 19, and the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth. The vine? That's Jesus. Why is he doing that? Well, because this is a false story, that's why. And cast it into the great winepress of the anger of God. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So according to what they're saying is that Jesus is reaping the believers and casting it into the winepress of the anger of God. Verse 20. And the winepress was trampled outside the city. What city? It just says that, outside the city. That's just silly. It's meaningless. So God is trampling what? People, believe it or not, And then it says, and blood came out of the winepress, even up to the horses' bridles. This is one of the most amazing verses in this book of Revelation. It's like, what? By the distance of 1,600 furlongs. Well, it's not hard to find out what a furlong is according to a mile on the internet. So we have God trampling people outside some city. Well, we'll assume it's Jerusalem, since that's the big deal city. And it's a bloodbath, and we're going to find out what the distance really is. So then I use the GNB over here, and I wanted to put in, there's one verse that used the word stomped, because that's what you basically do, crush underfoot if you're walking, if a person is walking in a wine press. But it says here in the GNB, the grapes were stomped out in the wine press outside the city, and blood came out of the wine press in a flood, 200 miles long and about 5 feet deep. I just noticed that it doesn't even have the business about the horse bridles, but yet it still gives you the measurements, because they're still saying it's 5 feet deep. So this is what this book is claiming. God is trampling, I hate to say it, but Christians on the vine, right? Believers in Jesus. And the blood is so much blood, right? It's crazy. That it literally fills 5 feet deep, 200 miles wide. That's just the silliest thing. That's just the stupidest thing. That's the most ridiculous, harebrained thing. That might be the most harebrained thing in this book. Far-fetched, implausible in the book, you know? So then, getting back to what I always have been saying about the plagiarism. This book is notorious. I don't know who put this book together. I think it might have been multiple people. But they definitely stole a lot of things from the Old Testament. They used the Old Testament believing that it would be impressive and that people would believe it, and it worked. It worked. People are very gullible. They're very naive. And so here it is. Here's the verse in Isaiah where this came from. Amazingly. Isaiah 63, 3 and 4. I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. So it's just God speaking here. God is speaking, and he's alone doing this. So for I will tread them in my anger and trample them in my fury. And their blood shall be sprinkled. So here it's only a sprinkle. It's not 200 miles wide. That's ridiculous. And 5 feet deep. Oh, my word, that is so far-fetched. Off the charts, exaggeration up the yin-yang. Just exaggeration, just insane exaggeration. 5 feet deep. Sprinkle on my garments, and I will stain all my clothes. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. I don't know why it says the year of my redeemed is come, because according to this was the judgment. I think that this could be attributed to the judgment of Israel. And so I guess he's trampling on the unbelieving Israelis. He's trampling on the unbelievers in the tribes of Israel. And he's saving the redeemed. I don't know why it says the year of my redeemed, or the year of the judgment of my redeemed. You know, it says the day of vengeance. But this is taken almost verbatim, right? They use this in the book of Revelation. Patmos John. Patmos John wrote it. That's what they say. That's what they claim. Then we have John. I'm just going to read the words of Jesus now for the rest of this message, for the most part. John 4:35. Say not, or don't say, there are yet 4 months, and then comes harvest. Behold, I say to you, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white, all ready to harvest. See, that's the harvest that's going on now, so they're always ready. There's always people out there that are lost, that don't have any faith in God, and they're just floating around, they're just drifting around, and they don't know what they're doing half the time. They don't know the difference between right and wrong, up and down, black and white, good and evil. And some of them actually would like to know, some of them, that God is a reality. Because when you experience the power of God, where 2 or 3 are gathered, or when you're gathered in your closet, in your prayer closet, where 1 is gathered in the prayer closet, there God is manifesting himself to some degree. And then he will be with you to some degree later on in the day. And then we have this long parable. This stuff is very interesting. Let me move down to the 36th verse. Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came to him, saying, declare to us the parable of the weeds of the field. He answered and said to them, he that sows the good seed is the Son of Man. So we see that Jesus is the Son of Man. That's one of his names. That's what he liked to call himself, the Son of Man. He was the Son of God and the Son of Man, but he called himself the Son of Man. He didn't say he that sows the good seed is the Son of God. He says the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed are the children of the kingdom. So here the good seed is the people, because there's also other verses on the parable of the sower. We have the word of God as good seed. So here now he's saying that the good seed is also children of God, children of the kingdom, see? So we're not kings and priests, we're children of the kingdom. You see that? But the weeds are the children of the wicked one. So we've got people that are also not believers in God. Verse 39. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. So we have the devil working. He's working in the world. He's not like in hell. Maybe he can go there, come back, but he's working around the world. He's busy, 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 doing all kinds of things. The harvest is the end of the world. Put that in bold. So this is talking about the harvest of the end of the world. And the reapers are the angels. Do fear the reaper. As therefore the weeds are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of the world. So he said that he told the angels to gather the weeds first, gather them, and then burn them in the fire. He didn't say, take your sickle and butcher them. No, that's not in harmony. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels. See, he commands the angels. The angels don't command him. Those verses I read, the angels were commanding Jesus. But here it says, the Son of Man will send the angels. And they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend. So everything that offends God, offends truth, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them or throw them into a furnace of fire, blazing inferno, there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Now that's not a pretty picture. And I don't enjoy reading that. Of course, some people, very evil people, crocodile tears, Because crocodiles are heartless, They'll just eat you and then look for the next meal. So we could consider these tears as crocodile tears. And I would hope that there's people that can repent. I hope it's possible for people to repent in hell, before the time of the harvest, so that they don't have to be put in a furnace. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. It doesn't say anything about a city coming down out of the sky. It says that will be living in the kingdom of their Father. The kingdom of God. We'll be living in the kingdom of our Father. His kingdom. It doesn't say that we'll be living in some city that God piloted down to the earth or to whatever planet. Because this book of Revelation claims the whole thing will be, before that happens, the whole universe was going to be burned. I find that hard to believe. When? 60 trillion billion years from now? Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear. So we see that harvesting begins with the weeds or the unbelievers. And so that should be stated. And of course, this book of Revelation doesn't have a clue. They didn't seem to have any access to the words of Jesus, whoever wrote this. So they were getting these false visions and false imaginations. And according to this story, then at the end of the world, according to this parable, that is when people are put in. It doesn't say lake of fire either. See, it's amazing how many people believe in that book of Revelation. They just believe certain parts of it, certain phrasing, and certain concepts. But this talks about a furnace of fire, not a lake. Jesus talked about hellfire. He talked about outer darkness. But he never talked about a lake. He didn't say anything about a lake of fire. And the book of Revelation seems to indicate that there'll be all kinds of delay to that. You have the 1,000 years reign of Jesus, and supposedly people will be, that didn't believe or refused to believe, are going to be held in the center of the earth. And then they claim somewhere down the line everybody's put into the lake of fire. Well, somewhere down the line they claim there's going to be a judgment, and then somewhere down the line there's going to be a casting into the lake of fire. All these time frames are all concocted. They're all been dreamed up by somebody. It's hard to believe, really, that they would concoct all these things, because they're in direct opposition to this. This says at the end of the world, they'll be put into the furnace. The end of the world. That's it. And the angels will harvest all those who reject the doctrine of Jesus, the substitutionary death, the sacrifice of Jesus. and that fight against Jesus, and they'll be put into the furnace of fire. I wouldn't want to have to go through multiple lifetimes. I don't want to be born again in another body as a baby and then have to live through and not remember my previous life. It'd be great if I could remember my previous life. I'd love that. Then I would not make any mistakes. Everything that I didn't want to do in this life, the next one I would be totally different because I wouldn't make all the dumb mistakes. But nobody remembers any of that stuff. They don't really. If they do, it's an anomaly. It's highly unusual. They may remember certain things about it because I believe that spirits have put it in their minds. They've downloaded it. I believe the devil. I would have to believe the devil gives them this, information, because the devil knows who's lived. The devil knows people that have died and what kind of life they've lived. And he can just say, oh, you were so-and-so back in the 18th century. Yeah, 1729. And that's who you were. Because he knows who that person is. So if they look up that person, if they can find them, information, if they can find information about him, there he is. Oh, how do you know? Well, the devil knows. The devil knows about that. He's been alive for thousands of years.